when we talk about beholding the Triune God or seeing God, the Bible talks about seeing God in terms of God's actions. So God reveals himself to us in his actions. And that includes actually the Bible, the written word of God that he's given to us, but it also includes his actions where he reveals himself to, first of all, his people Israel in the Old Testament, ultimately in the person and work of his Son, God the Son in the flesh, Jesus Christ, and then also through the Spirit to the church. So in God's actions, he's revealing himself. And you think about through the Bible, there's all kinds of examples of God doing something, and then the Bible talking about God's people seeing him. So, I mean, the burning bush would be an example of that, where God does something. He miraculously makes this bush burn without being consumed. Moses isn't seeing God as God exists in himself, but he's seeing God's act, this burning bush, and that's revealing who God is. So the same thing is true ultimately of Jesus. Jesus is God the Son in the flesh. When we look at the human body of Jesus, we're not seeing the divine nature, so to speak. We're seeing God the Son in flesh, right? So we don't want to split those two apart. It's a whole different book. But we don't want to split those two things apart. But still, it's in what God does, namely becoming incarnate in God the Son, that we see who God is. So when we talk about knowing God, when we talk about seeing God, when we talk about understanding who God is, the Bible describes how we do that as being through seeing God's actions, being a part of God's actions. That's how we see God. So when we, this book, Beholding the Triune God, it's all about God's actions, but that's because we see God in what he does.